Hello everyone, FSG here, hope you're all doing well. I am back from a couple of weeks vacation, and while I was away I was thinking about FS25 and I was thinking about all the stuff we know already. But what about the stuff that we don't know yet, or the questions that we haven't had answered yet? So without further ado, let's jump in and have a chat about a few of the things I'm expecting to see that we've not heard anything about yet in FS25, and what might happen. So a few questions about FS25 we don't have answers for yet, and the very first one I'm going to touch on is, will we see the likes of Courseplay and Autodrive, and I'll include VCA and Enhanced Vehicle in there as well, as mods in FS25. We have, of course, had the announcement that GPS and a more enhanced AI system are going to be in-game, but they still seem quite linear, let's call it that. So I would expect to see, I hope, that we'll see mods like Courseplay and Autodrive still being available, because they give you more control, more flexibility, the ability to set things up how you want them set up, as opposed to rolling up to a field and having the course set for you. But also, we haven't touched at all yet on AI workers on the road. We know they were a little bit suspect in FS22, and I know Giants have said in the past that they're working to develop the AI platform for workers, but are we going to see the ability to unload combines? Are we going to have a better system for them running on the roads? Are they going to crash into things like they tend to at the moment if left to their own devices? We'll just have to wait and see. Now, I haven't talked about VCA or Enhanced Vehicle in this section really, because they have additional settings as well on top of their GPS functions. So I would expect to see something like that in game, but certainly Courseplay and Autodrive I am fully expecting to see as mods going forward. Next up, and this is a big one, animals. Other than knowing that we've got water buffalo coming, we've heard nothing yet about changes to the way that animals are done. I, for one, think we are in desperate need of a little bit of an overhaul of the animals within Farming Simulator. It's become too easy now. I am very much a person that is a bit of a feed and forget. You can load them up with food and leave them for 3 or 4 months and not need to worry about things. I would like to see them be a little bit more involved, a little bit more like real life. Yes, I know we've got mods like Maze Plus, but they are, for the majority of casual players, that's a little bit too much in the other direction, but I would like to see some sort of balance in the middle and a little bit more focused gameplay on those, because at the moment it's just too easy in my eyes. Next up is seasons. I think the general opinion across the board is that seasonal cycles in FS22 was a bit of a step backwards from seasons in 19. Understandably, seasons in 19 started as a mod and then was added to base game. But seasonal cycles in FS22, we lost a lot of that functionality. I'm hoping to see some of that come back. Certainly, it would be disappointing if we get to FS25 and there isn't progression in seasons and a bit of a development of that. I would like to see, growing cycles, changing of temperatures and things like that. We've seen some of the visual stuff. We've seen the different colours on the trees and stuff. I'm not talking about the visual stuff so much here. I'm talking about actual functional gameplay changes and shifts in the way that you play the game based on what's happening in seasons. I would desperately like to see a little bit of an improvement on what we've had in 22, and I'd be very surprised if we don't see something improved in seasons. Now, talking about seasons, it brings me nicely onto weather. Now, we've seen some of the demonstrations of rain and how it interacts with the roads and the vehicles. For me, that's kind of expected, but what else is coming? I would love to see weather impacting on crops. Will it be more varied? Are we going to see different types of weather? Are we going to see a lot more variation in the weather, unpredictability in the weather? I live in the UK. You can have all 4 seasons in one day. It can rain for 2 weeks solid without a break. I've gone through years in FS22 with a couple of short, sharp, hour-long showers, and that's it. The rest of the year has been dry. So again, I would like to see it being brought into the mechanics of the game a lot more. Whether or not we go to the level where it, wind flattens crops, or heavy rain flattens crops, or has an impact on the yield because the grass or the ground is so wet that you can't get the crops off the ground, or the too much heat so you get a bit of a drought so the crops don't grow as much, but things that make you rethink your plans or have to make decisions based on the weather, like, do you harvest early or do you hold on and risk potentially losing your crops? Stuff like that I'd be really excited to see a little bit more of, and fingers crossed we might be able to see something like that. Next one up is a big brand announcement. Now, we had John Deere in FS19 and Mack Trucks again in FS22. Now, Giants do add many new brands to each new game, but they do tend to have one flagship brand announcement in the base game. We haven't heard anything yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we hear one closer to launch date. Next one for me is whether or not 4X maps are going to be available for console. We already know that Giants have said they're not going to go over and above the standard size maps that they've done in previous games, but they haven't said whether or not, if modders create maps, that they will be available to console players. So maps are added to the mod hub further down the line. Will they be able to be accessed by Xbox and PlayStation players? We will just have to wait and see. We all know the limitation in the past was the older gen consoles, and I think we're pretty confident, and we actually saw it with a map, a 4X map that was available for console for a very short amount of time in FS22, operating and running very well on newer gen consoles. So again, no official news. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. Now, while we're on the subject of mapping and modding, will FS25 see improved information and documentation to help modders when creating or converting mods for the new game? While the new version of the Giants engine is likely to be released within days of the new game, certainly when it was FS22 there was very little information around what had changed and how to change things to make them work in the new game. Hopefully we'll start to see a little bit more information shared from Giants about how to update mods in the most effective or the most efficient way. Now, we already know there's been a release of the scripting book for FS already, and there's another new book coming dedicated to modding in Blender in October this year, and also the modding tutorials have been updated. So fingers crossed we're starting to see a little bit more information, a little bit more sharing of information going forward. I don't know yet whether or not the changes that need to be made for FS25 are going to be as big as the changes that were required moving from 17 to 19. I know from 19 to 22 it was relatively straightforward, but we are just going to have to wait and see. Fingers crossed there is going to be hopefully a lot more information out there for modders going forward to help make their life as easy as possible, because the longevity of this game, it really is predicated on the modding community and what they do for us. Next up, let's talk about optimization of the game. Now, we already know that you can have the most powerful computer in the world, but actually the game will reach its limit long before your computer does. I, for one, would like to see a much more optimized game in FS25, hopefully multi-core support to allow us to run more smoothly at higher frame rates. This probably won't come out as any kind of big announcement. This will probably just be happening in the background and be optimized as we get closer to the launch of the game. We'll just have to wait and see on this one, but I'm hoping for a big step up. With the dropping of older gen consoles, I really think the opportunity is there now to really optimize the game a lot more than it has done in the past. So big fingers crossed on this one, and I know a lot of other people are really looking forward to seeing some big gains in FS25. Physics improvements as well. Let's be honest, driving physics are an area where we'd like to see some improvements in FS. Now we know Giants have got the new partnership with Straight 4 Studios. Hopefully that'll potentially bring some enhancements in the future. I think it's too late for FS25, but as yet we've had no real details of any major changes to physics or handling within the game. We're just going to have to wait and see, but fingers crossed we will see some developments there as well. One of the things I'd like to see updated in FS25 is the number of peripheral inputs that you are allowed to accept into the game. At the moment this is limited, so if you have over and above a keyboard and mouse, a controller, a steering wheel, a joystick, anything like that, you get to a certain point where those start to overlap and you have to manually add the keybinds in for them to work. It can be quite frustrating. I think in future it would be great to see an extension of that to maybe 5, 10, even more inputs, so that you don't have to reset your keybinds every time you add another peripheral. We'll just have to wait and see though. Now, there are a few other small things that I just wanted to kind of leave out there for your consideration as well. After FS22's launch trailer, there was a little bit of a pushback from the community that things shown in that trailer didn't appear in the game. Now, Giants have specifically said that they wanted to avoid that a little bit more in FS25. So with that in mind, there are certain things that we've seen in the trailer and in some of the images that may make it into the game. One of them is that photo mode. Maybe we'll be able to create very nice screenshots from within the game rather than using a third-party app. In addition, we saw quite heavy wind, rain and lightning in the CGI trailer as well. So again, maybe that talks to what I mentioned before about additional weather effects and things like that. And finally, the third-person image that we saw as part of the Riverbend Spring image release a few days ago. Again, still potentially up for grabs as things that we could see in FS25. Like I said, we have had nothing in terms of clarity from Giants yet. They will be holding on to some information. We are 3 months away still from the launch of FS25, so plenty of time to drip feed the information and let us know what's happening as we get closer to launch. But there you go, that was just a few things that were playing around in my head. I thought I'd share them with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments as well, what you think you've maybe seen or you will be expecting to see in FS25. Now, I'm not talking about, pie in the sky, we've never seen it before, but we're going to get it this time. I think everything I've talked about here is something that is either in-game or we have heard news about already or information about already, but just it hasn't been elaborated on. So I'm intrigued to see what's going to be coming for FS25. I firmly believe that Giants are holding on to some quite big information that they will release closer to the time, just to keep that hype train going. But for now, let's be honest, what we've seen so far is very, very positive. I think there's more to come, but I would love to know some of the answers to these questions as well. But there you go, just a little bit of a chat around things that I think might be or could be or will be or should be happening when FS25 comes out. But for now, thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.